I'm going on a date tonight. Don't be jealous, okay? My wife Olivia stood in our bedroom doorway wearing a red dress I'd never seen before, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. The scent of her expensive perfume, the one she saved for special occasions, hung in the air between us. She smiled at me with a casual confidence that made my stomach turn to ice. I looked up from my laptop and stared at her, unable to process what she just said. We'd been married for 7 years. A date, I managed to say. What are you talking about? She rolled her eyes, checking her reflection in the mirror. Don't make this weird, Jason. It's just dinner with an old friend. In a dress like that, I asked, my voice eerily calm even as my hands began to shake. What's wrong with looking nice? She applied a final coat of lipstick, the deep red she knew I loved, and dropped the tube into her purse. I won't be home late. Or maybe I will. Don't wait up. The door closed behind her with a soft click that somehow felt more devastating than if she'd slammed it. I sat motionless on our bed, listening to her heels click-clack down the hallway, the sound fading as she reached the carpeted living room, then the final thud of the front door. I opened the laptop again and stared at the screen. The irony wasn't lost on me. Just 3 days ago, her phone had synced automatically to our shared cloud storage while she was in the shower. I hadn't been snooping. I'd been backing up my own work files when the notification appeared. Olivia's iPhone backup complete. What caught my eye was a series of text messages previewed in the backup log between her and Tyler Bennett, my former college roommate and supposedly one of my closest friends. The conversation was explicitly intimate. My tech background became my unexpected ally. I knew exactly how to navigate the backup files. I clicked through the recovered data now, each image burning itself into my memory. Her laughing with a glass of wine, him with his arm around her waist. The timestamps showed they were for 6 different occasions over the past 2 months. There were voice messages, too. Olivia's security practices had always been careless, using the same password for multiple accounts, keeping herself perpetually logged in on all devices. She'd never bothered to learn how digital breadcrumbs work. He still doesn't suspect anything. He's so clueless. Probably organizing my socks or something right now. Her laughter in the recording was light, carefree. I'd always loved her laugh. I closed the laptop and walked to the window, watching her sleek black BMW pull out of our driveway. She was heading east, toward downtown, toward the Westlake Hotel where Tyler was staying while in town for business. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. Instead, I felt an icy clarity settle over me. Tyler wasn't just my former roommate. He was now my business partner in our cybersecurity firm, Bennett and Miller Consulting. We'd built it from nothing over the past 5 years. Our client list included 3 Fortune 500 companies and government contracts worth millions. And now this. I returned to the laptop and began to work. My fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing our secured backup systems with an administrator override that Tyler didn't even know existed. As the co-founder and CTO, I designed our security infrastructure myself, including the redundant backup protocols that saved everything, every email, every file transfer, every log keystroke, for compliance with our government contracts. Tyler had always been careless with operational security, despite our line of work. That carelessness would cost him everything. Within minutes, I had accessed his company email archives. The search algorithm I coded on the spot quickly filtered for messages containing Olivia's name, our home address, hotel bookings, or expense reports with suspicious patterns. The results were devastating. Not just evidence of their affair, but proof that he'd been expensing their rendezvous through the business. Tax fraud on top of betrayal. For the next 6 days, I was methodical. I created detailed spreadsheets of their meeting times, cross-referenced with the lies she'd told me about where she was going. I downloaded every photo, every message. I recorded my screen as I scrolled through their text exchanges, the ones she thought were deleted but had backed up to our shared drive. I discovered that Tyler had given her a second phone, one I never knew about, but she'd signed into her regular accounts on it, and everything still synced to our cloud. Amateur mistake. To verify the authenticity of my evidence, I employed digital forensic techniques I normally reserve for our highest security clients. I established chain of custody documentation, created SHA-256 hashes of all files to prove they hadn't been tampered with, and captured metadata showing exact transmission times and device identifiers. If this ever went to court, the evidence would be bulletproof. I contacted our company's legal counsel, Sarah Patel, under the guise of a hypothetical discussion about partnership dissolution options. As one of Boston's top business attorneys, Sarah's expertise was invaluable. If a partner engages in behavior that constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty, she explained, you have grounds not only for dissolution, but potentially for civil damages. Hypothetically speaking, I asked, would an affair with the other partner's spouse qualify? Sarah's expression remained professionally neutral, but her eyes narrowed slightly. It could, especially if company resources were used to facilitate the affair or if it affected business operations. But Jason, is there something specific you're dealing with? Just exploring all scenarios, I replied. We're updating our partnership agreement, and I want to be thorough. She didn't believe me, I could tell, but she respected my privacy. Well, hypothetically, documentation would be crucial. Times, dates, evidence of misused resources. What if one partner has been categorizing personal expenses as business costs? I asked. Say, hotel rooms or gifts that had nothing to do with client development. Sarah's eyes flashed with understanding. That's fraud, plain and simple. It would trigger several clauses in your partnership agreement, including immediate suspension of the offending partner's access to company accounts pending investigation. And if I already have evidence of this fraud, then you should show it to me immediately, she said, dropping all pretense. Not as a hypothetical. I nodded. I'll have it on your desk tomorrow morning. That evening, I checked our company expense reports. Sure enough, Tyler had charged multiple hotel stays, dinners, and even the second phone he'd given Olivia to our business account. He'd categorized them as client development expenses. What are you working on lately? Olivia asked on the third night, peering over my shoulder. I'd minimized all the incriminating windows, leaving only a spreadsheet from my actual job visible. Just some data analysis for the Henderson project, I replied, smiling up at her. How was your Pilates class? Great, she said, resting her hands on my shoulders. Sarah says hi. Sarah, her friend who'd been in Hawaii for the past month. I nodded and returned to my spreadsheet, feeling her eyes on the back of my neck. You seem different lately, she said, her fingers lightly kneading my shoulders. Everything okay? Never better, I replied, saving my work. Just busy with the quarter ending soon. She seemed satisfied with that and wandered off to take a shower. As soon as I heard the water running, I continued my work. I printed everything, hundreds of pages of evidence, and organized them into 4 identical black binders with neatly labeled tabs. The first binder was for me. The second was for Tyler. The third was for Olivia's Burns, who were hosting our monthly family dinner on Saturday night. The fourth, which contained additional documentation of misappropriated company funds, was for Sarah Patel. While Olivia slept, I made one more crucial move. I transferred half of our joint accounts to a new bank account in my name only. Not everything, I wasn't trying to hide assets, just protecting what was legitimately mine. I also changed all my personal passwords and created a new private email account, Digital Fortification. The next morning, I delivered the 4th binder to Sarah's office before regular business hours. Her assistant hadn't arrived yet, but Sarah was already at her desk, reviewing documents for another case. This is earlier than I expected, she said, accepting the binder. You must not have slept. Sleep isn't a priority right now, I replied. Everything you need is in there, including evidence of systematically misappropriated funds, falsified expense reports, and unauthorized personal use of company resources. Sarah opened the binder and began scanning the first page, which contained a summary of Tyler's financial misconduct. Her expression grew increasingly grave as she flipped through the meticulously organized evidence. This is, she began, then stopped, apparently at a loss for words. Jason, this is comprehensive. How long have you been gathering this? Less than a week, I said, but it covers months of activity. She nodded slowly, still absorbing the implications. What do you want to happen now? I want everything done by the book. I don't want him to have any legal recourse. I placed a USB drive on her desk. This contains digital copies of everything in the binder, plus the original files with unaltered metadata. The drive is encrypted. Password is Bennett Miller 2019, the year we founded the company. You've thought of everything, Sarah said, a note of admiration in her voice. That's my job, I replied. Security is what I do. On Friday morning, Olivia kissed me goodbye, claiming she had an early client meeting. I tracked her phone to the Westlake Hotel. At 1:23 a.m., I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Jason Miller? A woman's voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is Officer Ramirez with the Metro Police Department. There's been an accident involving a vehicle registered in your name, a black BMW sedan. My heart stopped. Is she okay? Your wife is stable but injured. The car hydroplaned on Montgomery Avenue and collided with a delivery truck. She's refusing transport to the hospital. What? Why would she refuse? I stopped myself. Where is she now? We're still at the scene. She insists she has somewhere important to be and doesn't want to go to the hospital. We can't legally force her, but with her injuries. I'll be right there. I arrived 15 minutes later to find Olivia sitting on the curb, her red dress torn and stained, a nasty gash on her forehead. Her left arm was cradled against her chest. The BMW was crumpled against a white delivery truck, its front end destroyed. Jason, she said, surprised. You didn't need to come. You're injured and refusing medical treatment. Of course I came. I knelt beside him. What were you thinking? I'm fine, she insisted, though her face was pale with pain. Just some bruises and maybe a cracked rib. I need to get to my meeting. Your meeting at the Westlake Hotel? I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes narrowed. How did you... Sir, your wife really should get checked out, the paramedic interrupted. That cut needs stitches, and we're concerned about her ribs. I'll take her to our doctor, I said, helping Olivia to her feet. She winced. Thank you for calling me. In the Uber ride to the hospital, Olivia stared out the window in silence. I could almost see her mind racing, trying to figure out how I knew where she was going. Tyler will be worried when I don't show up, she finally said, her voice barely audible. I pretended not to hear her. The insurance will cover the car. Don't worry about that now. She turned to look at me, her eyes searching my face. You know, don't you? I met her gaze steadily. Yes. She didn't cry or apologize or try to explain. She just nodded slightly and returned to staring out the window. How long? Long enough. The hospital confirmed 3 cracked ribs, a mild concussion, and gave her 12 stitches for the gash on her forehead. They wanted to keep her overnight for observation due to the concussion, but she insisted on going home. I didn't argue. When we arrived home, I helped her to the guest bedroom. You'll be more comfortable here, I said. Less chance of me accidentally bumping your ribs in the night. She didn't protest. Jason, she began, but seemed unable to find the words. We'll talk tomorrow, I said, closing the door behind me. That night, I received an unexpected email from a woman named Megan Donovan with the subject line, Read Tyler Bennett. I didn't recognize the name, but the content made my blood run cold. Mr. Miller, you don't know me, but I worked at Meridian Consulting until last year. I saw your name connected to Tyler Bennett on LinkedIn. If you're still associated with him, I feel obligated to warn you about my experience. He's not who he pretends to be. If you'd be willing to talk, please call me at the number below. I called her immediately. Thank you for reaching out, Ms. Donovan, I said when she answered. Please call me Megan, she replied, her voice hesitant. I wasn't sure if I should contact you, but after what happened to me, what exactly did happen? She took a deep breath. I had a brief relationship with Tyler when he consulted for Meridian. After I ended things, he threatened to release intimate recordings he'd made without my consent. He said it would ruin my career. My grip tightened on the phone. Did he follow through? No, I paid him to delete them. $15,000 I could barely afford. But last month I heard from another woman at Meridian with the same story. Then another. We realized there might be more victims. Have you gone to the police? We filed reports last week, Megan said, but without the actual recordings as evidence, they said it's difficult to pursue. That's why I'm reaching out to people connected to him. I thought you might have seen or heard something suspicious. I was silent for a moment, processing this new information. Megan, I think I can help. My wife has been having an affair with Tyler, and I've discovered some concerning communications. Would you be willing to meet with me tomorrow? I'd like to share what I've found with you and potentially coordinate with the police. Yes, she said, relief evident in her voice. Yes, absolutely. After we arranged a meeting place, I finalized my preparations. I confirmed with Olivia's parents that we'd still be attending the family dinner despite Olivia's accident. Nothing serious, I assured them. Just some bruises from a fender bender. I called our office and left a message for Sarah Patel to meet me Monday morning regarding an urgent partnership matter. Then I packed a suitcase with enough clothes for a week and reserved a hotel room across town. The next morning, I met Megan at a quiet cafe several blocks from our office. She was in her early 30s, with dark hair pulled back in a professional bun and wary eyes that scanned the room constantly. "Thank you for meeting me," she said as I sat down across from her. I placed a flash drive on the table. "This contains evidence that might help your case. Voice recordings, text messages, and emails where Tyler discusses recording women without their knowledge." Her eyes widened. "How did you get this?" "My wife and Tyler weren't as careful as they thought with their digital footprints. I explained about the cloud sync and backups. I've made copies of everything. This set is for you and the other women to take to the police." "This could change everything," Megan said, carefully pocketing the flash drive. "The detective has said without evidence, it would be our word against his." "There's something else you should know," I added. "Based on what I've found, my wife may have been aware of these recordings, possibly even complicit in some cases." Megan's expression hardened. "That wouldn't surprise me. Tyler often mentioned a female friend who helped him scout talent. His words, not mine." The cafe seemed suddenly too warm, too confining. "I'm sorry this happened to you," I said. "To all of you." "What will you do now?" she asked. Exactly what Tyler would never expect. The legal, methodical dismantling of everything he values. Later that morning, Olivia was sitting at the kitchen island when I came downstairs, slowly sipping coffee and wincing with each breath. "How are you feeling?" I asked, pouring myself a cup. "Like I was hit by a truck," she replied, attempting humor. "Technically, you hit the truck." A weak smile. "Jason, about yesterday, about what you said in the car." I raised my hand to stop her. "Not now, we're still going to your parents tonight." She looked surprised. "With everything that's happened?" "Especially with everything that's happened." She studied my face, trying to read my intentions. "What are you planning?" "Just be ready by 6, I said, grabbing my keys. "I have an errand to run." The errand was meeting Tyler at Kingsley's bar at noon. He was already there, nursing a whiskey at a corner table. He looked up as I approached, his expression guarded. "Jason, hey, your message sounded serious." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Everything okay with Liv? I heard about the accident." I sat down and placed the black binder on the table between us. "She's fine, bruised but nothing permanent." Tyler nodded, his eyes darting to the binder. "What's this?" "Everything I know about you and my wife." The color drained from his face. "Listen, man, I can explain." "I'm not interested in explanations," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm interested in truth. Open it." His hand shook slightly as he flipped through the pages. The photos, the messages, the detailed timeline of their affair. With each page, he seemed to shrink in his seat. "How did you—" "Cloud sync," I said. "Amateur mistake." He closed the binder and pushed it away like it was contaminated. "What do you want? Money? An apology?" I laughed for the first time in days. "I don't want anything from you, Tyler. I just wanted you to know that I know. And that by this time tomorrow, Olivia's entire family will know too." "You can't do that," he said, leaning forward. "It would destroy her." "Interesting that you are concerned about her reputation now." I stood up. "Keep the binder. Consider it a parting gift from a former friend." As I walked away, he called after me. "Jason, wait. There's something you don't know." I turned back. "You mean about the recordings? The women you've blackmailed?" "Megan Donovan sends her regards." His face went from pale to ashen. "She contacted you?" "That bitch is lying." "Save it for the police," I said. "They'll be in touch soon. Oh, and I've scheduled a meeting with Sarah Patel on Monday. Turns out using company funds to finance your affair constitutes fraud. The partnership is dissolved, effective immediately. You can't do that without board approval, he hissed. Check the partnership agreement. Section 7.3. In cases of demonstrable financial malfeasance, any partner may invoke immediate dissolution pending review. I've already frozen the company accounts and notified our major clients. He stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. You'll regret this. I built that company as much as you did. And I'm dismantling it just as efficiently, I replied. Goodbye, Tyler. I left him standing there, his face contorted with rage. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from him. This isn't over. I've got dirt on you too. I didn't bother responding. There was nothing to find. By the time I returned home, Olivia had showered and was attempting to style her hair around the bandage on her forehead. She'd chosen a high-necked black dress that hid most of her bruises. You look nice, I said from the doorway. She met my eyes in the mirror. For my public humiliation? Is that what you think this is about? She put down her brush. Why else would you insist on going to my parents after finding out about Tyler and me? I approached her slowly, stopping just outside of arm's reach. Because you need to understand what you've thrown away, and because I need witnesses for what happens next. Fear flickered across her face. What does that mean? What are you going to do? Nothing violent if that's what you were worried about. I checked my watch. We should leave in 20 minutes. The drive to her parents' suburban home was silent. Olivia stared out the window, occasionally wiping away tears that she thought I didn't notice. I kept both hands on the wheel, my mind surprisingly clear. The Anderson family had always been warm and welcoming to me. Robert and Margaret, Olivia's parents, had treated me like a son from the day we met. Her younger sisters, Emma and Grace, were like the siblings I never had. Their sprawling colonial house had been the site of countless holiday celebrations, summer barbecues, and monthly family dinners like tonight's. As we pulled into the driveway, Olivia turned to me. Please don't do this, she whispered. Whatever you're planning, we can work through this privately. Like you worked through your issues with our marriage privately, with Tyler? I opened my door. It's too late for that. Robert met us at the door, his jovial expression falling when he saw Olivia's bandaged face. Good Lord, sweetheart. They said fender bender, not demolition derby. I'm okay, Dad, she said, accepting his gentle hug. Just some cuts and bruises. Margaret hurried over, her hands fluttering around Olivia's injuries without actually touching them. Oh, my poor baby. Come sit down immediately. Emma and Grace were already at the dining table with their husbands, all looking concerned as we entered. The third binder sat at my usual place, innocuous and devastating. What happened exactly? Emma asked as we settled into our seats. Hydroplaned on Montgomery, Olivia explained, her voice tired. Hit a delivery truck. Where were you headed in that weather? Robert asked, passing the mashed potatoes. The forecast warned about flash flooding. Before Olivia could answer, I spoke. She was on her way to meet Tyler Bennett at the Westlake Hotel. The table fell silent. Olivia froze, fork halfway to her mouth. Tyler, your college friend? Margaret asked, confused. Is he in town? He is, I confirmed, reaching for the binder. He's been in town quite often recently. Haven't you, Olivia? Her face had gone chalk white beneath her bruises. Jason, please. I opened the binder and turned it toward her family. Olivia and Tyler have been having an affair for at least 2 months, possibly longer. The silence that followed was deafening. Robert was the first to recover, his face darkening as he began to flip through the pages. What is this? He demanded, his voice barely controlled as he came to the photos. Evidence, I said simply. Everything synced to our shared cloud account. Margaret's hand covered her mouth in shock. Emma and Grace exchanged horrified glances. Their husbands suddenly became very interested in their dinner plates. Is this true? Robert asked his daughter, his voice breaking. Olivia couldn't meet his eyes. It's not what it looks like, she whispered. Really? I flipped to the section with the voice messages and played one. He still doesn't suspect anything. He's so clueless, probably organizing my socks or something right now. Her laughter filled the dining room, followed by Tyler's voice. That's why we work so well together, Liv. We both know what we want and are not afraid to take it. I stopped the recording. It's exactly what it looks like. Olivia Jean Henderson, her mother said, using her full name like she was a child again. How could you do this? Olivia's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she looked desperately around the table. You don't understand. Tyler, he manipulated me. He threatened me. Threatened you how? Robert demanded. He recorded us without my knowledge. Said he'd share the videos if I ended things. I hadn't expected this twist. That's convenient, I said. Where are these alleged recordings on? On his phone, she said quickly, in a hard drive in his hotel room. Interesting that you know exactly where they're stored, I noted. Almost like you helped make them. Her eyes flashed with anger through her tears. You have no idea what's been going on. Tyler isn't who you think he is. Neither are you, I said quietly, then turned to her family. What Olivia isn't telling you is that Tyler has been recording and blackmailing multiple women. I've been contacted by several of his victims, but unlike Olivia, they weren't willing participants. That's not true, Olivia cried, standing up so quickly she knocked over her water glass. I never knew about any other women. I pulled out my phone and showed her the text message thread I'd found. A conversation between her and Tyler discussing a woman named Jennifer, with Olivia suggesting how Tyler could get her alone. Then what's this? I asked. You suggested he target your former assistant. You even told him which hotel she stays at when she travels for work. The room went completely still. Robert slowly took off his glasses and placed them on the table, his hands shaking. Get out of my house, he said quietly. Dad, please, Olivia began. Not you, he said, still looking at his plate. Him, Jason, I need you to leave. I hadn't expected that. Robert, I understand this is difficult. You brought this filth to my dinner table, in front of my family. He finally looked up, his eyes hard. I don't care what my daughter has done. You don't humiliate your spouse in front of her family, ever. I looked around at their faces, Margaret silently crying, Emma and Grace shocked and uncomfortable, their husbands studiously avoiding eye contact. Perhaps Robert was right. This wasn't the way. I apologize for the disruption, I said, standing. The binder contains everything you need to know. Olivia can explain the rest. As I walked to the door, Robert followed me. In the foyer, away from the others, his demeanor changed. What you did in there was cruel, he said, his voice low. But I suspect you are not a cruel man by nature. No, sir. Then why? Why like this? I met his gaze. Because she wasn't just unfaithful to me. She helped Tyler prey on other women, women who trusted her. And I thought you deserved to know who your daughter really is before the police come knocking on your door. Robert paled. Police? Multiple women have filed complaints against Tyler for blackmail and illegal recording. Based on the evidence I've found, Olivia was an accessory in at least some cases. I've already provided the police with copies of everything in that binder. He leaned against the wall, suddenly looking every one of his 68 years. My God. I'm sorry it had to be this way, I said, and meant it. You and Margaret have always been good to me. What happens now, he asked. That depends on Olivia. And on you. I opened the front door. Goodbye, Robert. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Robert stood in the doorway, watching me leave, the weight of what he'd learned visibly pressing down on his shoulders. My phone rang. It was Emma. Jason, where are you? Heading to a hotel, I said. Your father asked me to leave. I know, but you need to come back. Now. Why, what's happened? Tyler's here, she said, her voice shaking. He showed up right after you left. He's saying terrible things about you. Dad's trying to get him to leave, but he won't go. I think he's drunk. Call the police, I said immediately. Olivia says if we do that, she'll deny everything and say you made it all up. I made an illegal U-turn and headed back toward the Anderson house. I'm on my way. Don't let him leave. When I arrived, the scene was chaotic. Tyler's black Audi was parked haphazardly in the driveway. One wheel on the lawn. I could hear shouting from inside the house. I walked in without knocking to find Tyler in the living room, red-faced and gesturing wildly. Olivia stood beside him, looking both frightened and defiant. Robert was trying to calm the situation while Margaret and her daughters huddled near the stairs. Ruined everything, Tyler was shouting. He's trying to destroy me. And you're all just sitting here believing his lies. You need to leave my house, Robert said firmly. Now. Tyler spotted me in the doorway and pointed accusingly. You think you're so smart, don't you? Using those backups against me? It's over, Tyler, I said calmly. The police have everything. Megan and the others have made statements. Your hotel room has probably been searched by now. You self-righteous prick, he snarled, stepping toward me. You act like you're some kind of victim. But you're just a pathetic, his words cut off as Robert stepped between us. That's enough. Both of you out of my house. Dad, please, Olivia begged. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain, Margaret said, her voice ice cold. We heard the recordings. We saw the text. You helped this predator target other women. Olivia's face crumpled. I didn't know what he was doing at first, I swear. And then when I found out, he threatened to release my videos too. So you sacrificed other women to save yourself? Emma asked, disgust evident in her voice. Before Olivia could answer, Tyler laughed bitterly. She's lying. She knew exactly what was happening. She enjoyed it, the power, the secrecy. Tell them, Liv. Tell them how you suggested Jennifer because she got the promotion you wanted. The room went silent. Olivia stared at Tyler in shock, as if she couldn't believe he'd betrayed her so completely. Is that true? Robert asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Olivia said nothing, which was answer enough. I think it's time for everyone to leave, Margaret said, her face ashen. Olivia, we'll call you tomorrow. As we all moved toward the door, Tyler suddenly lunged at me, his fist connecting with my jaw. I staggered back but didn't fall. Before he could swing again, Robert and Emma's husband Mark grabbed him. That's assault, I said, touching my split lip. Add it to the list. Outside, as Robert and Mark struggled to get Tyler into an Uber, Olivia approached me by my car. You've ruined everything, she said, tears streaming down her face. No, Olivia, you did that all on your own. I opened my car door. Don't come home tonight. I've arranged for a hotel room for myself. But given what just happened, I think you should be the one to stay elsewhere. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. I got into my car and drove away, leaving her standing in her parents' driveway. The next morning, I received a call from Detective Harmon with the Special Victims Unit. Mr. Miller, we'd like you to come in and make a formal statement about Tyler Bennett and potentially about your wife's involvement. Of course, I agreed. I can be there in an hour. Also, you should know that we executed a search warrant on Bennett's hotel room last night. We found substantial evidence corroborating the victim's statements, including a hard drive with dozens of videos. My stomach turned. And Olivia, was she? Yes, there were recordings of her as well. But unlike the others, her face was never visible, and there were text messages suggesting she was aware of the recordings. I closed my eyes, processing this. I'll be there soon. The police station was busier than I expected for a Sunday morning. Detective Harmon was a tall, serious woman with short gray hair and tired eyes that had clearly seen too much. Mr. Miller, she greeted me, leading me to an interview room. Thank you for coming in. Of course, I said, taking a seat. How can I help? She placed a folder on the table between us. Your wife contacted us last night with some disturbing allegations against Tyler Bennett. Normally, we'd investigate before bringing in witnesses, but something she mentioned connected to several other open cases. What did she say? She claims she was coerced into helping Bennett target other women, that he threatened to release compromising videos of her if she didn't comply. I considered this. Based on what I've seen, their relationship appeared consensual and enthusiastic. But I can't speak to whether he coerced her into participating in his broader scheme. That's what we're trying to determine, Harmon said. We have 7 women so far who've come forward with similar stories about Bennett, recording them without consent and using the footage for blackmail. And Olivia? That's complicated. Some evidence suggests she was a willing participant, even an accomplice. Other evidence indicates she may have been manipulated. I spent the next 2 hours going through my evidence with Detective Harmon, highlighting relevant messages and timestamps. By the time I left, I felt both exhausted and oddly relieved. The truth, whatever it was, would come out. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was Sarah Patel, our company attorney. Jason, I just got a very disturbing call from Tyler Bennett. He's threatening to sue you for defamation and illegal dissolution of the partnership. Let him try, I said. I have documented evidence of financial fraud. That's what I told him. But he's not being rational. He also made some alarming statements about making you pay that sounded potentially threatening. I've notified building security at your office and suggested they revoke his access credentials. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your looking out for me. It's my job, she said, but it's also because I believe you're the wronged party here. The partnership dissolution will proceed as requested. I've already notified the board. After we hung up, I drove to my hotel and tried to sleep, but my mind was racing with everything that had happened. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Olivia, her family, and even one from Tyler, all of which I ignored. Around midnight, I finally checked my voicemail. The last message was from Emma. Jason, I just wanted you to know that Mom and Dad have asked Olivia not to come to the house for a while. They're devastated. Dad wanted me to tell you he's sorry for how he reacted last night. He was shocked and didn't know how to process everything. If you need anything, please call us. I lay back on the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling. The anger that had fueled me for days was beginning to ebb, replaced by a profound sadness for all that had been lost. My marriage, my business partnership, the relationship with Olivia's family that I'd treasured. But beneath the sadness was something else, something that felt almost like relief. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, police interviews, and difficult conversations. Tyler was arrested and charged with multiple counts of voyeurism, blackmail, and sexual coercion. The evidence against him was overwhelming, especially after police discovered a hidden offshore account where he'd deposited money from his victims. Olivia's situation was more complicated. After extensive questioning and review of the evidence, prosecutors charged her as an accessory in 3 cases. Her parents hired a top criminal defense attorney, but the text messages and voice recordings were damning. I filed for divorce on grounds of adultery and received no contest from Olivia's side. The process was surprisingly straightforward. We had a prenuptial agreement, no children, and she made no claims on our shared assets. Our company, Bennett and Miller Consulting, was dissolved. I started a new firm under my name alone and was surprised when most of our clients chose to follow me. Sarah Patel joined as in-house counsel, bringing her expertise and steady guidance. Before the divorce was finalized, I visited Olivia once at her parents' house, where she was staying under strict conditions of her bail. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her actions. The bruises from the accident had faded, but she moved like someone much older, burdened by invisible weight. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing for me to sit in her parents' pristine living room. Emma said you wanted to talk, I replied, remaining standing. I'm listening. Olivia twisted her hands together. I wanted to tell you that I'm pleading guilty to everything. Why tell me? That's between you and your attorney. Because I want you to know that I'm not fighting it anymore. No more lies. She looked up at me, her eyes hollow. What I did with Tyler, to those women, to you, it was unforgivable. Yes, I agreed. It was. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I did it, why I became someone who could do those things. She wiped away a tear. It doesn't excuse anything, but I think I've spent my whole life trying to feel powerful, in control. And did it work? Did ruining lives make you feel powerful? She shook her head. It made me feel nothing. That was the problem. I kept needing more risk, more betrayal, more cruelty, just to feel anything at all. I finally sat down, not out of compassion, but exhaustion. What do you want from me, Olivia? Forgiveness? Understanding? No, she said softly. I don't deserve either. I just wanted you to hear the truth from me once before everything changes. I'm looking at jail time, Jason. Real jail time. Actions have consequences, I said, standing again. Goodbye, Olivia. As I walked to the door, she called after me. For what it's worth, I did love you. In the beginning. I paused, hand on the doorknob. That's the thing about beginnings, Olivia. They're meaningless without the middle and the end. Tyler Bennett was sentenced to 12 years for multiple counts of voyeurism, blackmail, and sexual coercion. Olivia received 3 years with the possibility of parole after 18 months, a lenient sentence reflecting her cooperation with prosecutors. I moved across the city, buying a small house near the river with a yard big enough for the dog I'd always wanted, but Olivia had always refused. I named him Chance, a deliberate reminder that sometimes life gives you second ones. My new company, Miller Security Solutions, grew rapidly. I specialized in personal digital security, helping people protect themselves from exactly the kind of invasion Olivia and Tyler had perpetrated. The irony wasn't lost on me. Within 18 months, my firm had tripled in size with a staff of 30 and a client list that included 2 major tech companies and a government cybersecurity contract. I'd turned my painful experience into a successful business model, focusing on protecting individuals from digital exploitation. Our marketing materials never mentioned my personal story, but my team knew where our mission came from, and it gave our work purpose beyond profit. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Megan Donovan, one of Tyler's victims, who had initially reached out to me, came to work for my firm as our client relations director. Her experience gave her unique insight into our clients' concerns, and her resilience was inspiring. "Have you heard from her?" Megan asked one evening as we worked late on a new security protocol. "Olivia? No." I looked up from my computer. "Her sister Emma calls occasionally to check in, but that's it." "Do you think about her?" I considered the question carefully. "Less and less. I think about the women she helped Tyler target more often than I think about her." Megan nodded, understanding. "The hardest part for me wasn't what Tyler did. It was knowing that another woman helped him do it. That betrayal felt worse somehow." "I'm sorry," I said, "for all of it." "Don't be. You're the one who helped stop them." She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in the months we'd worked together. "You know, in all this darkness, that's something worth holding on to." For months after that, I avoided dating, focusing instead on healing. I joined a support group for people who'd experienced betrayal trauma. I hiked on weekends, took cooking classes, and eventually signed up for photography workshops, something I'd been interested in for years but had never pursued. It was at one of these workshops, 18 months after the divorce was finalized, that I met Rachel. She was the instructor, a tall woman with warm brown eyes and a camera permanently hanging around her neck. She critiqued my work honestly but kindly, showing me how to find beauty in unexpected places. We became friends first, meeting for coffee to discuss photography, then dinners where we talked about everything else. She'd been through her own personal hell, losing her brother to addiction, followed by a difficult divorce. We recognized the careful way each of us approached trust and respected those boundaries. 6 months later, she invited me to her apartment for dinner. As I helped her wash dishes and afterwards, she asked, "Are you ever going to tell me the full story about your ex-wife?" I hesitated, then dried my hands on a dish towel. "Are you sure you want to hear it? It's not a happy story." "Most real stories aren't entirely happy," she said, leading me to her couch. "But they're honest." So I told her everything about the red dress, the cloud sink, the methodical documentation, the family dinner, and the criminal charges that followed. She listened without interruption, her hand occasionally squeezing mine when the story became difficult to tell. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "That must have been incredibly painful," she finally said. "Thank you for trusting me with it." "I've spent a lot of time wondering if I could have seen it coming," I admitted. "If there were signs I missed." Rachel shook her head. "Sometimes there aren't signs. Sometimes people are just really good at hiding who they really are." "That's the scariest part," I said. "How do you ever trust again?" She thought for a moment, then said, "I don't think trust is the absence of doubt. I think it's the willingness to be vulnerable anyway, to take the risk because the alternative is living alone in a fortress." I looked at her, this woman who understood loss and betrayal but hadn't let it harden her, and felt something I hadn't expected to feel again. Not the desperate, consuming love I'd had for Olivia, but something steadier, something with roots. "I'd like to take that risk," I said, "with you." She smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling. "I was hoping you'd say that.